Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Recently named one of Holler Country's new country and Americana artists to watch, British singer and songwriter Hannah Jane Lewis is carving out her own indie twang lane, blending shimmering indie pop with country-inspired storytelling. With over 35 million streams, she has earned support across Spotify, including multiple weeks as the cover of Fresh Finds Country, and placements on playlists like Fresh Finds and All New Country, Apple Music playlists in the country and pop space, and Tidal, where she appeared as the cover for Serene Storytellers, along with repeated backing from BBC Introducing and CMT. Hannah Jane has supported major acts including Shawn Mendes and Jess Glynn, and collaborated with top writers and producers such as David Hodges, Lost Boy, The Orphanage, and Noah Conrad. Her latest EP, Riding in Cars with Boys, marks a new era of sharp, witty, and emotionally honest songwriting, showcasing her signature storytelling and distinct indie twang sound. Up next on Celeb Savant, we've got Hannah Jane Lewis. Where in the world are you and how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. I am in London. I'm in West London, to be specific.
Okay, so now let's dive straight in. At what age, whether as a child or teenager, did you think, okay, I want to be in this creative world, and how did that journey progress?
I actually wanted to do this for as long as I can remember. I was like one of those kids that just like knew from a young age. No one in my family, my parents have never done music as a job, but they loved music. So I grew up in a house where there's lots of music playing. They loved theatre. And so as a kid, I did singing lessons, dancing lessons, acting lessons. So I was really involved from like a very young age. I started dancing when I was like 3. So it was kind of like the only thing I knew, the thing I absolutely loved. Didn't know how it would be possible to do this, but I just knew that it would be what I did. So then I guess as it like progression wise, I was doing all the clubs and stuff through school. And I also like, when I was listening to songs, lyrics were always the parts of songs I loved. So I was always interested in that. I was writing my own songs for fun, and then moved to America for high school. And I like continued it out there. And then when I graduated from high school, I decided I was going to go to university and I wanted to do something in music. I was living in Florida at the time and got finished with high school and was like, I'm going to go to university for something in music. I didn't know that you could go for recorded music. So I did musical theatre, also because I did, dancing and acting. So it kind of made sense. And so I went to NYU in New York City and I studied in their musical theatre department called Tisch School of the Arts for 4 years. And while I was out there, like was loving it, but it was actually it was becoming real to me that like as much as I love musical theatre, I preferred to do songwriting and be on the stage, I guess, being myself. So I guess that was where the like proper decision came in to not do like musical theatre and to do this other thing instead. So I still graduated from uni, but in musical theatre, but I basically graduated early, kind of like with my head focused on trying to be in the music industry. And by then my whole family had moved back to England. So I decided to move back to England and try to do it here. But for me, it started with like teaching myself to write songs from listening to my favorite artists, like putting those on YouTube, going to open mic nights, meeting people. I released a bunch of music. And back then it was like country pop. No one heard it. And then I started to veer more into the pop world and I released music with that. And that actually went really well. And that's kind of where I got I dipped my toe in the music industry and like got a record deal and all that kind of stuff. And that's at that time I was doing bubblegum pop. And then I guess I've landed to where I am now, which is almost like where I started in this like country indie folky place that I stopped for a while. And that kind of happened because COVID happened and it gave me like a sec to like sit and stop and think about what I was doing. And I was like, wait, I don't want to do bubblegum pop. That's not like who I am. So I did like what a lot of people did in COVID and just rethought everything, like changed my team entirely and like took a long time, like years writing, trying to figure out what was true to me, which is how I've ended up in the style of music that I am now. So yeah, so I've been doing it for a really long time. I've wanted to do it forever, but that's kind of the spiel.
Being part of the industry and then becoming professional, have there been any aspects of the journey that surprised you that you did not realize would be part of the professional career, and that is?
That is a great question. I mean, yes, so many things surprised me. Like, I think when I was younger, I really just had stars in my eyes, and I thought that like I would find, you know, a manager, and then my life would change, or I would get signed to a record label and my life would change, and suddenly my music would be everywhere. And that's like just not how it works. You know, I was signed to a major record label, and things went well there, but like the stars have to so align. You have to have like everyone at the label you behind you, and for it to like happen in a big way. So I guess that was surprising, that like the label side of it just doesn't mean that it's gonna work. I think I've been surprised being a woman in the music industry and what that means. Like, it feels quite different. I think the standards that women have to like are expected to keep to are different from men. Like, I think the industry pits women against each other, makes you feel like, you know, if you're a similar genre to someone else, like then that's a problem. Or even like age with women and stuff is way different to men. And I think also just like basically how hard it is. I absolutely love it, and that's why I'm still doing it. So many things have surprised me. Even now, like how so important social media is. Like, I don't think I would have expected that 5 years ago, before like TikTok was really, really important. Yeah, it's always surprising me.
It's interesting you spoke about the age things. I read the Bananarama autobiography, and this was in the 80s. And I remember they turned 23 or 24 at the time, and they were dropped by their record label saying they're no longer relevant because they're too old. I read another article, which was 2 years ago, which is now like 40 years later. And Radio 1 and Channel 1, I can't remember which stations they were talking about. In the article, they said, and female only, they mentioned, if a female artist is over the age of 30, they perceive their artist to no longer be relevant, and they will no longer play them. I do believe, though, now social media has sort of broken that slightly, because when Kylie came out with Padam Padam a couple of years ago, everyone was like, no, she's too old, we're not playing her. And then she blew up on social media and they were forced to play her. So it's interesting that one of the observations that you picked up.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you've just said. And I think social media has actually changed it, because before, the people that worked at the labels and stuff were the ones that made decisions. So they could just decide that if you're over 30, like you're not relevant. Whereas now on social media, you know, if an audience likes you, an audience likes you. And the powers that be but in the industry don't get to decide that. And you're so right about Kylie, like Charlie XCX, like, oh God, literally half of the women who were like killing it are over 30. Obviously, there's always something to write about. It doesn't matter what age you are, but like to think that your career would be done at that age, which is still so young, which is actually when you're like really starting to like come into yourself and understand yourself more, and which I think makes you a better writer, like is such an insane thing. So yeah, hopefully that's something that is less of a thing than it used to be, but it's definitely annoying because it is not something for boys. Like, I feel like men can be any age and it like doesn't matter.
We vented a bit. Let's dive into, how do you create a song?
I usually like to start with a lyric idea. So I have in my notes, in my like the notes app in my phone, I had just so many titles and little ideas, phrases, and I bring them into the session. So I'm someone, I guess, that I don't like to write all of the time. I like to write focused for like a period of time, and then to stop for a bit and to live and like see what I think about things, and then to do that again. But I have a group of people who I really like to write with, who I write majority of my songs with, actually mostly in Nashville. And so how that will work is like, I'll come into the session that day, we'll get on the same page of like what kind of song we're going to write. I will like tell them what my idea is when it comes to the lyric and the story of like whatever is happening in my life often. And then we sit there and we start writing the song. Sometimes I will have come up with like part of it by myself beforehand, but I actually prefer to just bring the idea in and to like see what happens, because that's kind of where the magic is. So sometimes I have song ideas that have been floating around for years before they actually come. And then sometimes it's much quicker, but that's usually kind of how I go about it. So I'm always collecting ideas, and I collect from like poems, TV, movies, things people say, and then obviously just like stuff that's happening in my life. But yeah, I love a good lyric idea.
You reference it sometimes takes a long period for something to land or to happen. Does it ever frustrate you, or you're just used to that? That's the flow?
Sometimes it's frustrating. There are a few ideas I've had, and actually my next song is this song called Wisteria, and the idea of that song I had written down for literally years, and I tried it in different ways with someone else, and that day, probably like 3 years ago now, I was frustrated because I was like, I think this is a cool idea, but like it wasn't there yet. And then I only just wrote that in October last year. So that's been 2 years of having that idea. I guess sometimes it can be frustrating, but I actually do sometimes take it as a sign that it's not like fully fleshed out in my head enough yet for me to understand what the story is. And then it comes when it's meant to come type thing.
So you referenced lyrics are your thing. A couple of points around this. So first of all, I speak to a lot of people who like listening to music. They think, oh, that's such a cool song. And I say to them, do you know what the song's about? Two perfect examples. Now, Sia Chandelier is all about her being an alcoholic and trying to stay sober. That 1, 2, 3 drink, 1, 2, 3 drink. And that other song by Crystal Waters, Gypsy Woman from the 90s, you know, that la da dee, la da da, that song. And it's a dance song, and it's literally about a homeless woman who's trying to make ends meet to make money. And I say to people, listen, do you know that this song is about this? And they're like, oh my word, I didn't even realize it. With your lyrics, are you comfortable in allowing the process of people to process it in the time that it takes them to process it? Or do you have the feeling that they must get it now?
No, like I feel like once I've done it, it's really clear in my head. And then when it's out, that it's for everyone to decide what it means to them. And some of my songs are like more poetic than other songs. So there's more license, I think, for people to think of it as something differently than I think of it, which is cool. And then some of my other songs are really they're how I would say it. So I think you know what I mean? Like people get the idea quicker, but no, I think once the song's out, I don't mind what people think, because everyone thinks of the song, like you said, differently. And like, I mean, even like that Viva La Vida song by Coldplay, everyone's singing that and no one knows that's about like the French Revolution. It's kind of cool to think that someone else can mean something completely different to another person. So it doesn't really bother me.
I'm not sure if you are aware of NLP. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. So this is the way people process information. There's a subsection in NLP called processing skills. Now, each of us at a young age as a child gets a dominant one, a secondary, and tertiary. Dominant means that you'll be in it most of the day. Secondary, maybe a couple of hours. Tertiary, 20 minutes, if at all. Now, there are 3 of them. They are visual people. Now, visual people process information through pictures. So as I'm speaking now, they'll be seeing pictures in their mind's eye, understanding the conversation through that. Audio people, it's about the word. They understand the word. They put the word into the sentence. They put the sentence into a paragraph, and. So it's all about the words. Kinesthetic, I'll do that word again. Kinesthetic is about the tone of voice, the energy, the body language, and the emotion of the interaction. That's how they process information. Focusing specifically on music, because it may differ in different areas of your life. When you are listening or appreciating or diving into the world of music, is it about the picture? Is it about the lyrics, or is it about the feeling?
For me, it's definitely the lyrics.
Yes,
Which
I
I
thought
really
so.
want. And thanks, but I think I guess I was going to say, I think that's because I'm a songwriter, but so I'm really listening to that because I do it myself. But whereas like my dad, for example, I can definitely think for him, it would just be about the feel. Like he just loves the feel. He doesn't know what's happening in the song. But in thinking about it, like I actually have always been interested in the lyrics from the beginning. So yeah, it must be lyrics for me.
But now when you are listening to songs by other artists, are you able to just relax and listen to a song for what it is, or is your creative, lyrical, technical brain unpacking what you're hearing?
Most of the time it is unpacking, but it doesn't ruin it for me. But I actually will say that if it's a genre that I just do not even think about writing, so rock, or like I don't really do like R&B or jazz, that sort of thing, then I think I listen to that without any thoughts, because it's like not something I ever sit down and write. Like there's obviously every genre is a little bit different. So that I think I get more easy listening from. But I still am always listening, even if it's say like a jazz song. Especially like sometimes I'll listen to like a really old jazz song and I'm like, man, that was a good lyric. I could still listen out for that. But yeah, maybe my mind is a bit freer when it, especially like dance music too. I don't really write that either anymore. And like, so I can just happily listen to that. But the genres I do write, like country and indie and folk and pop, I am listening to what's happening.
So I know it's all very secretive in your guys' world. So tell us about the latest releases. What can you tell us is also coming up over the next period of time?
I just released my EP, Riding in Cars with Boys. That was a 5-track EP. The idea was ins and outs of love type thing. My like crushes, like revenge songs, like it was all across the board. And the last song, Riding in Cars with Boys, is a bit of like a reflection song of older me versus younger me. And then I'm now just getting ready for the next project because I got loads of songs. So I'm like, gotta go. And so I'm now planning my next EP. The first song is called Wisteria, and that's the one that I kind of spoke about earlier. And so that's the first one. That's what's starting it off. And this EP like has kind of hints of where I just was in the last one, because they're all written at a similar period of time, but some of it is a little bit more self-reflective. It's maybe a little bit like happier in places. And there's a really exciting song coming around like September that I'm very excited about, but I won't give that away yet. So yeah, I'm really excited about that song. I love it. So I'm excited about all the songs coming out. So yeah, there's a whole new project coming.
Any thought of creating a full body work of an album, or are you concentrating on EPs now?
I would love to do an album, and I have a lot of songs. It's just being an indie artist, it's so hard to, in all honesty, pay for everything.
Yes, exactly.
So to make it easier, it's easier to do it in small segments. Do you know what I mean? We'll see where we end up. Like, I think the hope is definitely to have an album. Like, I've found an amazing group of people I love to work with in Nashville who like really get my vibe, and we're definitely onto something. So I think I'll be gearing towards that. And this next EP, I think, will probably be like 5 or 6 songs. And even with those 5 or 6 songs, I still have a bunch of other songs I want to come out. Hopefully after this next EP, there'll be an album on the way, because I've never released an album. So that would be very exciting.
I love me a CD. I still budget for my CDs every month. For me, it's a thank you to you guys for all the hard work that you do.
Oh.
I love the journey of the choice, the booklet, the unpacking, listening to song from 1 to whatever number. I'm unsure if you are or not aware, massive uptick of physical around the world. I was reading in Variety a few weeks ago that in the US last year, $1.04 billion spent on vinyls last year, the biggest since 1983.
Amazing.
2 years ago in the UK, 5.9 million vinyls sold, the biggest since 1993. Last year, also in the UK, there's a basket of products that they gauge exchanges on. Based on these exchanges, which there needs to be a high number every day, they monitor it for tax purposes. And because of the upsurge of CDs again, CDs are now back in the basket. And the research of all of this is that it's the teenagers diving into this world, the younger kids, not the older nostalgic person. Now, we also have Spotify and the DSPs that people consume music on. What are your observations of the landscape at the moment?
I think you're right. I think it's definitely back, and it is the teenagers. It's the same with even like the way everyone's dressing. Like, it's like the 90s, but the 90s never goes. I don't know if you know about that TV show that just came out called Love Story, which was about JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette in the 90s. But I feel like right now there's like this whole, that was so popular and that got everyone really interested in like the specific fashion going on in there and the music going on there. Like that album for that TV show was like all the songs that were big at the time. And so I think the teenagers just want to feel what that was like. I guess to not have music that's so disposable, right? Like now it's like you can go on Spotify and you can have just in your playlist, you can just have one song from one artist and then never hear another song from them, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Maybe hopefully the younger people are like craving feeling like they're part of something, like a project, like people's projects like that, rather than like it being just so like random. And I think that's so good, because I think that's something that's actually really sad, is that, you know, artists work really hard to create full bodies of work and, you know, to tell stories in their full body of work. And when I listen to an album, I like listen from the beginning to the end. I do not swap around. So I think if people are out there doing CDs and vinyls, that's the best thing ever, because then we're back to that. And I just think that was really sad that we kind of were like geared away from that for a while, because there's so much thought that goes into like the order of songs and like the full story of an album or an EP. So if that's what's happening, I'm super excited. And also it's just like, it's because it's cool, isn't it? Like vinyls are cool. It sounds cool. It doesn't need to sound amazing. That's another good thing about it, is like maybe we're veering away from like super polished pop, that sort of thing, and back into the way it did used to sound on vinyls. So I'm very happy to hear that. And I also used to love getting CDs and like literally reading the full packet in the thing. This is great news to me.
Do you think the listening audience needs to have more of an education piece around the energy exchange? I'll explain to you. I teach spinning classes, and I decided to do focus groups. I did a focus group of 10 people, 8 people, 3 people, cross-culture, cross-age, cross-diverse. Mainly they listen to music on digital or streaming. Mm-hmm. And I said to these groups of people, if an artist has had 100 million streams, how much money do they think the artist got in their back pocket? The first group of people said 50 million. The second group of people said 1 million. And the third group of people said 200,000 to 2 million. I said to them, no, it's like 1,000 or 2,000. I do know that Ray, I do know that Snoop Dogg, a bunch of artists are speaking out about it. I have spoken to a bunch of artists, though, who say they use it as their business card. They can see they're blowing up in Portugal, in Toronto, and in Spain. So they know, okay, I can now go and tour there. What are your thoughts around this? Do you think there needs to be more of an education piece?
I do think that would be helpful, because then maybe people would feel more inclined of like paying for things like Spotify. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just like having the free service. Because if everyone paid for it, maybe we done a little bit more. When this happens, where like, for example, Ray really spoke up, and really, you know, she still didn't move the needle on the fact that artists and songwriters do need to be paid more. And I mean, of course she moved the needle, but it's not like she made it happen, unfortunately. Whereas maybe if like the general public knew that was such a thing, it would make it the change more. And maybe then they would also think like how you're thinking, like, oh, I'll buy the CD, or I'll listen on the radio because they get paid more from the radio. Do you know what I mean? Or I won't like listen on wherever the free place is. I'll pay for a Spotify subscription. So I think it would be good. The only thing is I just don't think people will ever understand it, because even from being in the music industry, I hardly understand how you earn money from the music. Like, it's so complicated. And when I have to explain it to someone who isn't in the industry, I can kind of just see them looking at me like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. But Taylor Swift tried. I remember, I think some of her music wasn't on Spotify, because obviously Spotify pays people the least. And that's incredible. Like, if people like her don't do that, then again, it could change things. But that's such a hard thing to do. It's like, that is literally what, I guess Spotify is probably the biggest platform. Like, you kind of can't not really have your music on that. I think everyone's in a bit of like in between a rock and a hard place on it, because it's not good. But yeah, people think there's way more money to be earned.
So I love this next game. I know if I had to ask this question tomorrow, the next day, or the next day, I know your answer will be different. I'm not saying favorite, okay? I'm saying top of mind. Okay. If once we finish this conversation, you want to listen to 5 other artists, who would those 5 artists be?
Casey Musgraves, for sure. Fleetwood Mac. Just off my gut, John Mayer is someone, like, because I'm thinking of who I would bring to a desert island as well. So it's like, who's like, maybe not the music I'm like listening to right now. But I love John Mayer, and I always have. I love Taylor Swift. I am the biggest Swiftie ever. So that's 4. And then my last person, who am I going to choose? Maybe the 1975.
The podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message, what would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to say thank you for having me. Been so fun to chat. And it's always so good to talk to people who are like real music lovers too. But I guess I'd like to say hello to everyone and listen to my music. If you like indie twang kind of vibes, then I'm your girl. And come follow me on social media. I'm HJL Official or Hannah Jane. If you type in Hannah Jane Lewis, you'll find me. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.